And just like that, it's Wednesday again.
It's Wednesdays.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Wednesdays with Woody, where we interrupt your run-of-the-mill Wednesday to bring you this hot-ass mess of a show. If you haven't guessed it, I'm your host, Woody Woods, who is just trying to do the most this week. And I'll be guiding you through this Wednesday session where we discuss all things trending and topical. So yeah, let's get into it. Autumn has arrived in the southern hemisphere of the globe, and yeah, it's one of my favorite times of the year. When all the green begins to change into other variations and other colors, obviously signaling decay, but we don't like to think about it like that. So it's really just, I don't know, it's a fantastic time of the year. It's also reminding me I need to pull out the heaters and change the bedding. I don't want to find myself shivering through a night's episode of whatever. So yeah, autumn is here. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling relaxed. We've just come out of a long weekend, an Easter long weekend, which was really, really good. Oh my gosh, it was refreshing. It was good just to take a little bit of a break. I know that in South Africa we do have a couple more holidays coming up before we go into what I like to call just the death stretch before we encounter another holiday, which always just makes, like, I don't know, it makes the working world just bearable, just to be able to just take a break amongst all the madness. So this weekend was very, very relaxing. I think the next holiday I'm gonna make it an uber long one because, geez, I just want to relax. That's all I really want to do right now. So yeah, that's what's been happening on the personal front. Let's just get into this week's topics. There has been like a ridiculous amount of transphobia this last couple of days, in fact, specifically surrounding the American actress and TikTok star Dylan. I hope I'm saying this correctly. I hate people's surnames. Dylan Mulvaney. Yeah, Dylan Mulvaney, who is an American actress, comedian, and TikTok personality. I believe that she's known for detailing her gender transition in daily videos on TikTok, I think, in early 2022. Yeah, in early 2022. That's what really catapulted her career, but she was an actress before that, so I suppose that no harm was being done here. But let's get into it. Why has Dylan Mulvaney been the center of news these last couple of days? Well, Dylan Mulvaney bagged 2 sponsorship deals this past week, one with Nike and another one with Bud Light. I think I caught wind of this story initially from the Bud Light contract that she had, or the promotional work she was doing on Bud Light, and that one was a bit more hostile than I'd actually expected to have an experience of viewing, but there was that, and then obviously a couple of days later, then Nike, some more promotional work around her partnership with Nike had come out, which really also just added fuel to an already blazing fire. But let's start with the contract with Bud Light. So to those of you who don't know, Bud Light, I think, is a very popular alcoholic drink in America. Almost just a drink in America. I'm sure they've got thousands of other drinks, but obviously it's a popular drink in America. And Dylan Mulvaney had partnered with Bud Light in order to, I don't know, obviously do some promotional work like any other influencer and how they obviously get paid. There was some serious backlash from this partnership with a lot of customers, and from what I specifically saw, it was a lot of I don't want to say they were Republicans, but I suppose that they were Republicans to some degree, but I don't think that was it. For me, I think it was just fragile masculinity on display. A lot of fragile males went about throwing away a lot of the Bud Light cans that they bought recently, emptying out their fridges. I saw Kid Rock taking a machine gun and firing at his cases of Bud Light. And obviously then there were comments on social media where people were just like talking about, or celebrating people who were throwing away their Bud Light cans, whatever. It was a lot. It was a lot to digest. Just to digest what people were going through and what they were experiencing. I think what always fascinates me when this type of thing happens, when a brand partners with someone who is in the LGBTQIA space or who's an influencer in that realm, and the backlash from cishet men is always wild. First, and when I say that, I'm not saying that they were throwing away like 1 or 2 cans. They were throwing away like cases and cases of cans that they bought, you bought these cans and now you are trying to make a TikTok display or trying to showcase that, we're against this by throwing away the alcohol that you've bought that you were going to partake in. It was wild. It was wild to view, because logically speaking, I would think that I've spent money on this. Let me just finish this and I'll move on to another brand, or, find something else to, find something else to drink, as opposed to this Bud Light, which obviously is now, it's giving me such a reaction that Bud Light has decided to partner with a trans woman. I'm gonna get into it. I'm setting the scene. In one video, which was then stitched with another video on TikTok, this guy was throwing his Bud Light cans out of his refrigerator. He had his dustbin ready, and he was just taking the cans and he was throwing them, and saying that he was going to move over to Coors. This video was stitched with another video. Coors is obviously another alcoholic drink in America. Was stitched with another drink. Stitched with another video. Word vomit. Was stitched with another video, and someone said that, but Coors is just an avid supporter of LGBTQIA plus people too. So exactly what are you proving? Is your masculinity so fragile that this partnership would create such distress in your life, that you would need to actually, that you would need to shoot a whole video, throw away all of these cans, and make a display of this? It was wild. It was really, really wild. I think coupled with that, the more, the more shocking video, I think, came from Kid Rock. Kid Rock, to those who don't know, used to be I suppose he still is a musician is an artist from the early 2000s, late 1990s. Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to do research into Kid Rock. I just know he was in the scene. He was somewhere there in the early 2000s. He was a prominent celebrity. He was a prominent musician. I think he belonged to a band. I'm obviously not going to do any research on any of this, but these are all my suspicions. I just know that he was good at his craft. He'd actually taken a machine rifle and was firing shots, literal shots, at his Bud Light cans, and then obviously he just had a statement about he doesn't really support this brand anymore, or whatever the case might be. I think that was more shocking for me to actually have viewed, because there was one comment that someone made saying that, but this is exactly the machine rifle that was used against members of the LGBTQIA plus community who were slaughtered and murdered in the Pulse nightclub massacre a couple of years back. Ooh. And that touched a nerve for me, because I think it was the first time that I realized that, I'm in my personal capacity, I'm a person who believes that if you have a problem with LGBTQIA plus people, if you're homophobic, rather say that you're homophobic, say that you're homophobic so that I know that I just need to avoid you. I don't need to be in your space, or in fact, I don't want you around my space. Not that I don't need to be in your space, but just say that you are homophobic so that I can obviously make the necessary arrangements to protect myself against you. Which is heartbreaking, because I suppose, or I suspect a lot of people are going to be viewing a lot of people's videos for the first time as they're scrolling through their own social medias and just coming across and being like, oh wait, I really was a supporter of this individual, or oh, that's my dad, or that's my grandfather, or I don't know, whoever. And this is their view on LGBTQIA plus people, or trans people, or whatever the case might be. This is what they think of us, that they are willing to take a machine gun and take shots at us, or whatever the case might be. I think that we've gotten to a point, specifically, and I'm not blaming social media, I think it's a powerful tool in terms of being able to disseminate information, in terms of us being able to have educational discussions and debates around many different topics, and for us to really get information in a way that we haven't been able to get in such a long time, because the mainstream media has become this tool used by conglomerates, and the uber rich, or whatever the case might be, has been used to ensure that we don't get all the information in a timely manner, or that the information that we get is severely filtered. So platforms such as TikTok are really changing the way that we consume a lot of the current event and current news that we are obviously all living through. I've completely lost my train of thought. Let me catch myself. Why is this happening a lot? Okay, I'm back. So I think that we've gotten to a place with social media where a lot of people still don't understand that your actions on social media have real-time consequences. Have real-world, not even real-time, have real-world consequences. And I don't think people have gotten that. I think people are just, or maybe they have gotten it, and I'm the one who's just living in a dreamland thinking that, ain't nobody figured it out yet. Maybe people have gotten it, and they're fully aware that their actions really will play out in the real world, even if they were done in their private capacity. But these actions really do inspire other people to perform and conduct severe crimes of hate against people who are different from them. And that troubles me. It troubles me that we are not able to... I want to say that we're not able to police this stronger, but then I'm always like, oh, wait, Woody, that's infringing on freedom of speech. But obviously in South Africa, you have freedom of speech, but there's a responsibility not to infringe on the rights of other people, which is something I never hear in other countries when they're busy speaking about human rights. It's almost like they're just speaking about, yeah, I've got my right to freedom of speech and to say what I want to say, but they know is there not the other side of the coin of just having a responsibility to ensure that you're not infringing on other people's human rights in your act of expressing yourself or expressing your views, which is a little bit troublesome for me when I'm watching a lot of the social media content and a lot of these political views playing themselves out, something like just shooting, taking shots and hectic shots with a machine gun, taking shots against something that you don't necessarily believe in, my mother always used to say that if you do not have anything nice to say, shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. And it's something that I have tried to always weave into my life, that if I don't have anything nice to say about somebody else, I'm just going to keep quiet, because what the hell am I doing? Why am I spewing all that negativity out into the world? And to what end? To what end is this going to get me? So it's always shocking to me that people are just so, very loud with their views, no matter how hateful or discriminatory that they might be. It shocks me. It always does shock me. But let's get back to, as you can see, I was saying, setting the scene. Getting back to Dylan Mulvaney. Oh my gosh, Dylan Mulvaney. So obviously then we have this Bud Light fiasco going on. And a couple of days later, then there is more promotional work being put out by Dylan. This time in relation to his partnership with Nike. It's a lot, man. It really is a lot. I'm never for anyone. You don't have to tear other people down in order to shine a spotlight on something. You really don't have to do that in this world. I understand when it comes to the topic of trans women specifically, there is still a lot more work that needs to be done in terms of educating the general populace. For LGBTQIA plus people, it's a lot easier for us, for many of us, not all of us, because there's still a lot more work. There's still a lot of hate, self-hate that needs to be done. But for LGBTQIA plus people, because we're always finding ourselves in these minorities, it's easier for us to, I don't want to say relate to each other, but to be able to learn more about the other's experience, and not to be shielded or to run away and not really try to understand about trans women or trans men and their rights, and how the mainstream or the status quo or whatever the cishet the cishet world, how the cishet world continuously just oppresses these minority groups. Yeah, they for me, when I think about trans women and trans men and trans children, I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, because I hear a lot of debates and a lot of conversations, but a lot of it is, once again, never backed up with actual facts. It is just the the elementary biology education that one got, and one feels as though it's enough in order to support their views, not really understanding that the science has come a long way. We now know that the brain structure of straight men compared to gay men is different in terms of attraction. We know now that the brain structure of trans boys and girls, men and women, it's very different, or is aligned rather, not different, is aligned to the gender that they identify as. So trans women, their brain structures are very similar to those of women, biological women. I wonder if that's okay to say. Even me, I need to do some education in this area. So, and that also is just like another layer to the conversation that we need to discuss, or that we all need education on, myself included, around how do we define what makes someone a man or a female, because from a biological perspective, it becomes a lot more murky as opposed to what we can visually see. From a biological perspective, it becomes nuanced. And once again, I just don't feel like there's a lot of just talking, thinking that we know, without being able to factually back it up with information, with resources, with debates and discussions, and trying to understand the other as opposed to this need to protect ourselves. Yeah, I think that's the best way I can put it. It's just this: we need to protect ourselves, we need to protect our identity, we need to protect these constructs that we have made up in our lives, because they're in juxtaposition, or they're in conflict. I wonder if conflict is the right word, even juxtaposition. They're in conflict with the other, who also wants to be seen, validated, and celebrated for who they are in this world. You'll hear a lot of straight people say that, I'm not homophobic, but automatically, like, you're about to spew some homophobic stuff. In the same way that someone says, like, I'm not racist, but yeah, but you're about to spew some racist stuff. I just think that more education needs to be done. Just very recently, I don't know which school in America. I've actually just deviated from where I was going. But there was a school in America which has allowed a trans girl to be able to continuously, participate in the sport that she was participating in. She was part of the female team, I suppose, or grouping, and they've allowed her to continue participating in that sport. But that being said, also, when I say as I'm busy talking, I'm also thinking about hey, don't forget, actually, there's also that puberty is where it really changes for a lot of trans boys and girls. So, if someone is not identifying as their sex or their gender at an early stage in life, and they're vocalizing that, and you've gone through the proper processes of seeing a doctor, seeking medical assistance, a psychologist, and you've got a team, and it's not I don't want to say it's not a fantasy that your child is having, because that's not the right language. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that you've gone through the right processes in order to make sure that your child is able to have the best and fullest life experience for themselves. That might be in conflict to your own personal views, or whatever the case might be, but what is important is that your child survives and makes it through, because the suicide rate of trans boys and girls who want to transition, who find themselves in bodies that are not their own, is really high, and we don't discuss it, and we don't talk about it. What we would rather focus on is, let's protect our children, let's protect them, but where's the research to back this up? What are you protecting against? Because I saw a stat which said that actually, out of the 100% of people who are, and obviously I need to go do my research, out of the 100% of people who were transitioning, there was a 1% of people who needed or wanted to detransition, or who had some kind of adverse reaction. I think it was 1%. let's just play around with 1 to 5%. Obviously, I think that we all need to go do our research and don't take my word for just what it is. I think it's important to always empower yourself with new knowledge. So I'm definitely paraphrasing here, hectically. But I think it was 1% of people who wanted to detransition, or who were just not happy with the transition that they've made, out of the 99% of individuals who were happy, who were living full lives. And I get so riled up about this, because when I think about it, all I'm busy thinking about is thank goodness that you're able to live a full human experience. Thank goodness that you're able to be who you want to be in this world, and that you don't have to hate yourself. You don't have to put yourself through a suicidal episode. You don't have to go through any of that in order to just be validated as a human being, first and foremost. In all of the discussions and in all of the debates that we have around trans children and trans people, we always forget that these are human beings who just want to be happy in this world. And their happiness is not necessarily a cis-het narrative. That's not everyone's version of happiness. Not all of us want to be straight. Some people have tried to be straight, I just don't understand why this is just this deep agenda, as though, I don't know, there are thousands of LGBTQIA people who are going to, eradicate all 8 billion of us because of their activity. We're a minority, we're a minority. Do you understand what that means? Have you empowered yourself before you open your mouth to spit words or to say things, that you have enough knowledge to back up your facts? Because a lot of the time what I'm sensing is that there aren't any facts, but I have deviated way too far from talking about Dylan Mulvaney and their partnership with Nike. So during this partnership, they were promoting the Nike sports bras, and obviously a whole lot of Republicans have got a problem, because obviously they're saying that, how can Nike do this? This is so disrespectful to women, biological women. Once again, I don't want to use biological women, because when I'm busy thinking about it, I'm just it's a bit of a catch-22. But I'm hoping that you understand the message I'm trying to convey. That a lot of let me find the right word. I'm really trying not to be disingenuous. I clearly need to do a lot more research on this, but I'm hoping that my message is not going to be construed as being transphobic, because actually that's not my intention. That's not my intention at all. So let's just back up a little bit. So a lot of women just felt like Nike was being disrespectful. A lot of, in fact, people viewed that Nike was being disrespectful, that a lot of Republican women, or a lot of women don't necessarily see Dylan as a woman, and they don't understand why Nike would have partnered with Dylan in order to promote the sports bra. Coupled with this, then came, I saw a couple of, in fact I just think I saw one from Caitlyn Jenner, but I'm sure that there were others, where Caitlyn was saying that, why did Nike decide to partner with Dylan on this as opposed to another female or woman trans sports star, as there are many in the world. That would have been a better option, as opposed to partnering with Dylan, who is an actress. who's an actress, as opposed to a sports star. Yeah, so once again, all of these things are just like convoluted in my brain. They all come together and they all converge somewhere. So Dylan has really been in the news a lot over the last couple of days, and I think it's important. Actually, I really do think that it's important to have trans people take up this type of space. I think on social media, what we're seeing a lot of is echo chambers. I was busy watching I think it was Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's interview sometime in January. There was a quote that really, really stood out to me from, what is the quote? Let me get it. Hold on. Okay, it was a quote from Sophia Noble. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. A quote from Sophia Noble, which said, "Let's be clear about what's at stake here. It's like symbolic annihilation. If you can destroy people who are symbols of social justice, then you can scare people to not want to be public. It is a way to signal to the rest of us to stand down." And I think that these words are really, really powerful for any person who is in a space where they are receiving a lot of attention, and it's against the status quo or whatever the case might be. It's against the status quo generally, and they're receiving a lot of hate. I think that there's a lot more love in the world and a lot more support in the world than what we generally see on social media. I think on social media we see the absolute worst versions of society because they tend to be the loudest. They've signaled to us, the rest of us who are all about love, peace, happiness and light, and whatever the case might be, that keep quiet, shut down, sit down. Like, if you speak, we will all come after you and berate you and, spam your feeds or whatever the case might be. And so what you're getting is a lot of people just being really silent in their views or really private in what their belief systems are, actually, as opposed to being supportive and loud and proud, as we would hope and as we want them to be in this world. So I really think it's important that this moment is happening, because it allows us to have a deeper discussion and a deeper understanding about trans people, transgender rights, and what is needed in order for these individuals and these parts of our society to feel whole, to feel valued, to feel respected, to feel like they're more than just, a minority which sits on the periphery of everything else. We need to protect at all costs trans boys and girls, trans men and women, and we need to educate ourselves. We all need to do the work of educating ourselves around trans rights and trans people. Ooh, I've said a mouthful. I've said a lot. Okay. I think I'm going to leave it here for this week. I think I've said a lot. But in closing, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I think this last 2 weeks, because I didn't record a podcast last week, and I'm so sorry about that. But I think these last 2 weeks, the words of Pamela Stephenson have really been echoing in my mind. And in the vein of today's episode around trans people and trans rights, and trans children, she was speaking very passionately. I think it was during a Senate meeting, or a congressional meeting, where people were protesting a bill that was going off in Kentucky, I believe, around trans people. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave you with her powerful words because they were really, really moving to me. I think that we need to take a moment as a people to understand that if we keep going on like this, we're gonna literally we're gonna take ourselves back. We're really gonna take ourselves back, because right now it's trans people. Tomorrow it is gay men, then lesbian women or lesbians, then I don't know, we're erasing bisexual people. We're really just going to be pushing ourselves further and further back into the worst parts of ourselves as humanity, because then after all of that, then we go back and it's like, okay, black people, you're next. And where does it end? Why can we not learn to celebrate and appreciate each other for who we are as human beings? Celebrate our differences. I don't necessarily need to agree with your perspective, but I can respect you as a human being. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna leave it. Until next week, always light, love, and happiness. I'm wishing you guys just a blessed week, full of light, full of love, full of happiness. And let me just leave you guys with the words of Pamela Stevenson. Ciao.
May I speak of the bill? We have created an environment of hate, and then we look at them like there's something wrong with them. First you hated black people, then you hated Jews, now you're hating everybody. So the question is, when it's the only people left are you, will you hate yourself? Power concedes nothing. This house is for the people, by the people, to serve the people, and you won't listen. You go after everybody's kids but your own. You make hate the way to go as long as it's not applied to you. You have to ask yourself the question, why would they be doing that? Who are we to cause that? None of us said we would come here and hurt people, and yet you make trades and policy so your bills can be heard. You go against the people of this state. This is a horrible, horrible session. This bill is horrible because it has nothing to do with the people. And the last thing I'll say is, God bless you, because somebody's going to have to atone. Yes, the gentleman from Death Row. Somebody's going to have to atone for not being who you're supposed to be.